The history of Saints Constantine and Helen Greek Orthodox Church reflects the history of our country. By the early 1900s, 26 million immigrants from throughout Eastern and Southern Europe came to this country in hopes of a better life. Approximately 400,000 were Greeks. Numerous Greeks and Albanians arrived in Webster and the surrounding towns because of the many mills and factories. They brought with them the values of their strong family bonds, their proud ethnic heritage, and the teachings of the Greek Orthodox Church. Reverend Walcott Lindsay befriended the original immigrants and invited them to worship in the Episcopal Church in Webster. He would serve as an intermediary between the Greek community and the renowned Slater family, heirs of the famous English-American industrialist Samuel Slater, who offered a two-tenement house located on Pond Street and Thompson Road as their first place of worship. Shortly thereafter, Cosma Hajoglu offered his coffee shop to serve as a meeting place. Here the church elected its first Board of Trustees in 1919. This is the date from which we are celebrating our church's 100th anniversary. The church purchased land on High Street in 1922. Father Athanasios Alupis became the first priest to serve in the new church, with James Pappas serving as the parish council president. Metropolitan Vasilios of Dramas dedicated the new church on November 8, 1925. Among the noted dignitaries attending the dedication was Prince Paul of Greece, who would later become the country's king. Archbishop Athenagoras, who would become the ecumenical patriarch of Constantinople, decided to hold the 5th annual convention of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese's New England churches at Saints Constantine and Helen in Webster, 1938. Archbishop Athenagoras was accompanied by a 50-voice choir from the nearby Greek Orthodox Theological School in Pomfret, Connecticut. One of our own parishioners, Ted Avalos, was part of that seminary choir. He would graduate in 1942 and become the only person from this community to be ordained a priest. The ladies' group of the church, initially called Elpis, Hope in Greek, turned into the Philoptos Society in 1938. Its purpose was to cultivate a sisterly spirit among members of the younger generations, encouraging them to give assistance to those in need.
My parents, Charles and Lucia Christos, were married in this church, and I was born and brought up here. I attended Sunday school and Greek school, and I remember memorizing those long Greek poems, which I received a few medals for. My mother didn't drive, so I had to pick her up and bring her to the meetings. And subsequently, I became the youngest member of the Philoptos. I suddenly found myself surrounded by many strong, active women who deeply loved their church. The Philoptos means Friends of the Poor, and we put on many fundraisers to raise money to help those in need. We donate to various ministries within the metropolis, such as the Philoxenia House, which His Eminence is very passionate about. And we also donate to various agencies within our own community. I'm very proud to be a member of our Philoptos, and I'm very proud of all the women in our community because we all love each other and we all work together as a family when we need to.
Throughout the 1940s and 50s, the church began focusing on Christian education for the younger generations. The first Sunday school class began in 1943 and grew to 50 students. Greek school was another central educational component. By the 1950s, the church organized its first POIA, the Greek Orthodox Youth Association.
Ήρθα εδώ πέρα το 1955. Ήρθα από τη θεολογική σχολή από τα Γιάννενα. Βγαίναμε δασκάλοι και παπάδες βγαίνανε. Πήγαμε στην εκκλησία και μετά δεν ξεκόλλησα από το στασίδι για να ψέλνω. Ψέλναμε μαζί με τον Λουκά. Και ο Λουκάς δούλευε κιόλας και αυτός είχε το εργοστάσιο. Ήμουν ευχαριστημένος. 65 χρόνια στο ψαλτήρι.
As the church grew and prospered, Vasil Bilkondos headed a search committee to look for land which was purchased in 1965 on Lake Parkway where to build a new church. Future plans became urgent when an unfortunate fire destroyed the original High Street Church on February 28, 1966. Under the capable leadership of James Metropolis, a building committee was formed. The parishioners built their new church in 19 months. On May 26, 1968, parishioners celebrated the dedication ceremony with Bishop Macris of Olympus and Father Nikolaos Nikolopoulos. Arthur Pappas, the president of the parish council, and Louis Thomas, the church's longtime chanter, opened the doors to the new church. Father Nikolopoulos would go on to serve this community for more than 10 years throughout the 1970s, acting as the longest-serving priest in the community's history through its first 85 years. In 1983, Harry and Tina Jordanoglu led the effort to establish the first Greek festival. Our church family wanted to share the beauty of its ethnic and religious heritage with the larger Webster, Central Mass, and Northeast Connecticut communities. These festivals, which during leaner years became known as church picnics, have been held continuously for the past 40 years.
I have been a member of St. Constantine and Helen Church for 60 years. My grandfather, Vios Kondos, served as one of the first parish council presidents of this church back in the 1920s. My father, Vasil Kondos, was on the committee to build our new church on Lake Parkway in the 1960s and then later served as parish council president in 2 different decades. I had the privilege of following my dad and Papu as parish council president from 2012 to 2016. I also followed the path of my mother, Despina, who was always so active in the church with the Philopticos, the festival, and so much more. While serving as parish council president together with Marie McNally, whose grandfather, James Giotis, and mother, Evelyn Apurgis, also served faithfully as parish council presidents, we decided to co-chair the festivals from 2014 to 2022. Over the years, our festivals have grown, bringing us closer together, not only with our church family, but neighboring towns and communities.
Under the leadership of the young, dynamic theologian and priest, Father Emmanuel Klopsis, and the faithful parish council president, Charles Pappas, the church paid off its mortgage 20 years after building a new sanctuary. Archbishop Iakovos of America and Bishop Methodius of Boston consecrated the church on the feast of Saints Constantine and Helen, May 21st, 1989.
I am a third-generation member of our beautiful church. My grandfather, Alex Pappas, came to this country with his family from Albania and settled in Webster. He was one of the founding fathers of the original church on High Street. I am very proud to call him my grandfather. My parents, Charlie and Helen Pappas, were involved with the church for most of their married life. My dad served as a council member, as president of council and festival committee for many years. My mom was very active with the Philopticos and loved baking with the ladies for the festival. They loved their church and their church family. I am very proud of my parents. My story is a little different. I left the church for almost 40 years. In my mid-50s, I felt I was missing something in my life and decided to come back to the church and reconnect with God. That was the best thing I ever did. I love my church and my church family, and I hope that my ancestors are proud of me. Thank you.
The 1990s into the early 2000s saw a drastic decline in church membership. His Eminence Metropolitan Methodius chose to use a missionary priest in presbytera who served 10.5 years in Albania to reinvigorate the church. Father Luke and Presbytera Faith Veronis began their ministry on December 5th, 2004. Father Luke became the 42nd priest to serve this community. Within 5 years, church membership doubled from 90 to 180 families.
I've grown up in this church and have been here during joyous times and times when our church really struggled. During those first years of our church's amazing turnaround, I remember myself, really all of us, getting so excited about what was going on. It was incredible to see even lifelong members like myself discover our ancient faith in new and exciting, vibrant ways. Either through Bible studies held in our parish house, or participation in weekly worship services, or youth programs where our kids got to know God and each other, we experienced spiritual growth and the development of a real Christ-centered fellowship. I still remember the banner, "Welcome to our church family," in the hall. We became that family, a family of God, caring for and supporting each other in the Spirit of Christ and serving the community at large. Just imagine, just for a moment, our lives without each other, without the light of Christ coming from this church, illuminating our lives together.
Worship is the center of church life. For 6 months prior to Father Luke's arrival, the church only had a substitute priest serving the Divine Liturgy twice a month. Father Luke incorporated a fuller cycle of liturgical worship, teaching our people how we enter into the kingdom of heaven and partake of God's mystical feast every time we gather for the Divine Liturgy. 3 times our community has been blessed by the visit of a miraculous, myrrh-streaming icon. The first time, the Kariotissa, or Tender Heart icon of the Virgin Mary, visited our church in 2015, and more than 1,000 people came to venerate the icon. We've also had the Hawaiian Iviron icon of the Virgin Mary grace us with her presence. Various miracles happened in our church community by the grace of God through these icons. An important part of the church's sacramental life has been welcoming new members into the life of the church. This church is known for its warm, friendly, and welcoming spirit, and we consciously cultivate a Christ-centered and loving fellowship here. We see ourselves as a true family, a family of God. Over the past 17 years, we've had 140 baptisms and 45 chrismations, welcoming new people into the church.
So I discovered Christ Church at a very low point in my life, a low point which seemed to be near the conclusion of years of searching for the truth. I had, like many people, just thrown the baby out with the bathwater. That's to say, I disregarded any sense of tradition while seeking for a confirmation of who I was and what this life was all about. So with nothing to ground me in a living, historic expression of man, I concluded that I was the arbiter of my own values. Now, being that I'm a deeply flawed person, that is to say, maybe just a fairly typical person, setting my own values just meant abjugating some of my own worst qualities. So if there's no absolute truth, then truth was what each person decided. And with no fixed reference point, I just started to chase my own tail, so to speak, in pursuit of the most fleeting sorts of pleasure. Ultimately, none of that was ever enough, and I still felt really empty. So eventually I hit a sort of rock bottom. And yet I remembered a quote that I had read from St. Isaac the Syrian. Now this quote roughly says that the saints, while living, were dead to this world, dead to the passions which dominate our lives. And my passions were pulling me apart, and I knew that I needed to be dead to them. And Christ offered a path to this healing.
Happy 100 years.
So the first time I came to this church for a service, I was invited by my great aunt, who would turn out to be my godmother. She was excited. They just got a new priest here, a young, vibrant priest. I came to the church service. I was very impressed by the sermon. I was warmly welcomed by everyone here in the community. So that led me to want to become baptized here in this church, and it was especially a blessing because my grandmother, who had fallen away from church after my father passed away, started coming to church with me. So it was really a blessing to be baptized, and it was something right out of my big fat Greek wedding, kiddie pool and all. And since that time, I've been blessed to be able to be a part of the parish council, currently serving as parish council president. I've been in the choir with my godmother and my grandmother. I'm very thankful also for their example, their dedication and service to the church. And also now at this point in the church's history, we're thankful for so many young adults who have been coming into our parish, and because we need that connection to keep one another, to hold each other accountable, and it's wonderful that we have that special blessing at this time.
Educational programs for all ages have played an important role in the church's revival, but a special emphasis has been placed on the youth.
It has been such a blessing to witness the joy and life that our youth have brought to our church community. I remember when we first arrived 17 years ago with our 4 children, my oldest children would ask, "Mom, where are the kids?" I responded, "Don't worry, they'll come." Soon after, we organized the first of many Grandparents, Godparents Sundays with elaborate puppet shows with our very own puppeteers and then with professional marionettes. I often reminisce with Father and we joke, remembering that our first year we had more puppets than youth. Our first summer, our church organized our first vacation church camp, which became a camp not only for youth, but also our families who volunteered and then bonded with one another. Father and I are so grateful for our church's creative and committed parent and teen camp staff. What memorable camp themes our youth have experienced. And intertwined within these themes are spiritual lessons, worship, arts and crafts, as well as musical and recreational activities, including tubing on the lake. As our kids grow older into their teen years, they are blessed to attend the St. Methodius Metropolis of Boston camp, where they form new friendships and grow deeper in their Orthodox faith. It is wonderful to witness some of our youth now returning as camp counselors. Throughout our Sunday school program, staffed with our many wonderful teachers and seminarians, our youth receive the foundation of our Orthodox faith. Our boys serve in the altar and our girls as epistle readers and choir members. During the Christmas season, our youth await the visit from St. Nicholas, entertain us with their creative puppet Christmas pageants, and go Christmas caroling to our shut-ins. On Palm Sunday, our children wave their palms to welcome the King. On Good Friday, our altar boys stand guard and our girls grace our evening service as myrrh bearers. Our children experience the joy of the resurrection with our agape service, Basca luncheon, and Easter egg hunt. Thanks to our beloved Nikki Beaudry for instilling a love for Greek culture to our youth as Greek dancers. What joy these dancers of all ages have brought to our church and community. Thank God our church has truly been a spiritual family, praying, supporting, and guiding our young people. To our youth and young adults, I want to encourage you to continue to discover the Orthodox gems in your life. Remember to carry the good news of Jesus Christ with you, close in your heart, in an ever-changing world. And finally, remember to be the next generation of torchbearers who are going to illuminate your Orthodox Christian faith and the love of Jesus Christ to all people throughout all the world. We love you and God bless you.
In 2019, 25 parishioners and friends from our church had the blessing to go on our first pilgrimage to the Holy Lands. We hope to go on another pilgrimage to the Holy Lands again very soon in the upcoming years. The faithful of our community actively offer their time and talents in service through acts of mercy and love, locally, nationally, and globally. Our church did something unique in 2019 with the Good and Faithful Steward Challenge, when we gave out $30,000 in cash to our parishioners. Every steward of our church received a cash gift and was then asked to share this blessing with others in need. One of the most beautiful ways we've reached out in service began with our cross-cultural mission outreach through Project Mexico. Our church has built 9 homes with 115 different people going on our teams on these life-changing trips. Participants have ranged from ages 11 to 78. 2 of our young adults, Olivia Naslushin and Theodore Veronis, even became summer interns numerous times. And over the summers, they would oversee 550 volunteers while building 25 homes each summer.
When I was 14, I went down to Project Mexico with a group from our church, and it really changed my life, and I know it's touched everyone's life who has gone from our church. And it was the first time that I really felt on fire for Christ and on fire for missions. and it's because he's so evident in the ministry there, whether it's meeting other Orthodox Christians or meeting the family that you've just built a forever home for, or meeting with the boys. Christ is so present there and joy is all around, and I couldn't not go back. And I went back for 3 summers home building, and I visited so many times. I've met some of the most amazing people I've ever met. I met my fiance there, and I'm so thankful that every person who's gone from our church has been touched by Christ and touched by this ministry. It doesn't matter if you've gone once for 1 week or have worked there for years, you've felt the love there, and I pray that more people from our church can continue to go.
Project Mexico led people in our church to question why we weren't doing more outreach and service on a local level. So we built homes for Habitat for Humanity, and we've served at homeless shelters and soup kitchens, yet we wanted to do more. Thus, in 2017, we began offering our Living Bread luncheon on the first Saturday of every month to the larger Webster community. Mostly elderly people come to enjoy a delicious meal and warm hospitality. And often these people will arrive literally 2 hours early before we serve, simply because they enjoy the atmosphere and they love the friendly spirit of our church community so much. Our church supports missionaries working in Albania, Kenya, Uganda, Sierra Leone, Guatemala, and other places around the world. Even though we're a small community, we're part of a global church. What happens around the world is a part of our story, and we want to be involved however we can. In 2005, some thought that our church might close its doors a decade or so later. Yet in 2015, we actually renovated our entire church, adding extra space for more classrooms, and under the capable leadership of Evelyn Pappas, we raised close to $1 million to fulfill that project. And now for this 100th anniversary celebration, our people have again responded in a generous manner.
In honor of our church's 100-year anniversary, we have raised close to $300,000 to beautify and upkeep our church and to share our blessings with others. We worked with RAP Medical Debt and paid off $3.5 million of medical debt for 2,200 families in New England. We're supporting Project Mexico, MBC Camp, an Orthodox school in Kenya, and local addiction programs. With this money, we are also helping children with special medical needs. With the generosity of our parishioners, we're spending approximately $150,000 for a new HVAC system, a new roof, as well as a beautiful Pantocrator icon on the ceiling that overlooks the entire sanctuary that I have implemented plans for. I'm also grateful for our wonderful parishioners. Our church is truly fulfilling its mission to glorify God and to offer a witness to His good news to the world around.
For 10 decades, our church has gone through cycles of growth as well as periods of stagnation. 42 priests have served this community. Generations of faithful have come and gone, yet the vision of the founders of this church has prevailed. Seismic changes are happening in our society. The church faces unprecedented challenges, with a majority of our country turning away from God, no longer believing in God, some even being antagonistic against God and the church. Yet we have to remember that God is with us. God has established the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, and He's promised that the gates of hell will never prevail against it. We are that church, and He's given us a divine mission to share His light, to share His love, to share His good news to a world that's desperate for that news, even if that world doesn't realize they're desperate for it. So let us remember our past. Thank God for 100 years, the forebears who've carried the light of Christ, who brought it to America, carried it for 100 years, and shined it forth in Webster and central Massachusetts. But now it's our turn for the next 100 years. It's our generation, the younger generation, who have to carry this treasure of faith, to open up the treasure box and discover the riches that are there, and then to offer them to a world. Christ said, I am the life. I am the bread of life. I am the living water. Christ is the eternal one, the one who is, who was, and who is to come. The Lord is with us. Let us go out, be the church, be His people, and shine His light brightly for the next 100 years. God bless us all.